Hi, I'm Daniel from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'd like to share how I came to find and recognize Buddha Maitreya. First, though, I'd like to give a big heartfelt thanks to Lord Buddha Maitreya the Christ and Her Holiness Mandravatara for all the blessings and the personal transformation in my life that has been the results. I took refuge as a Buddhist practitioner 4.5 years ago and have been a student of Buddha Maitreya's for the past 3 years. In the tradition that I come from, it is incredibly inappropriate to share practice-related experiences, and I only do so here to offer a testimony to Buddha Maitreya the Christ and some of the amazing things that I've experienced and seen. It really starts several months before discovering Buddha Maitreya. One night I had a dream where Thomas Merton, the Catholic writer and mystic, and I were in one of the Great Pyramids in Egypt. We were both wearing those round safari-type hats and ascending up one of the shafts to the exit of the pyramid. As the light from the doorway was beaming in and we're about to exit, he turns to me and says, "We're lamas." The dream was incredibly vivid, and I shared it with the Rinpoche who had given me refuge vows. We had recently been discussing Merton because of a connection he had with one of our lineage masters, and that he might have been recognized as a lama had he not passed away when he did. I figured this was significant because he had appeared in an incredibly vivid dream and because of what he said. So I decided to tell Rinpoche. But when I did, he just kind of nodded, smiled, and never gave a reply. The words of the dream were what were important to me at the time, but proved to be nothing but a source of delusion for me. However, having had this pop back in my memory as I was getting ready to do this testimony, I find it funny that a Christian was telling me that we were Buddhist lamas and that he was doing so inside of a pyramid. Shortly before discovering Buddha Maitreya, I had been studying the 8 great bodhisattvas. With each one, I'd pull up images of them, and when it came to Maitreya, I saw a picture of a Middle Eastern man in Nairobi back in the 80s who was being put forth as Maitreya. This started quite a pondering process in me about whether Maitreya was really here. Was this a bodhisattva emanation, the Buddha, a sham? Whatever the case, it really started a process in me where I was considering there must be some kind of emanation of Maitreya here on the planet at this time. Because all the 8 great bodhisattvas have many, many emanations. Lo and behold, I go into the Gompa, and Rinpoche is giving a teaching on Maitreya and saying that all the practice he is doing in this life is in the aspiration to sit at the feet of Maitreya when he arrives. I found it to be quite inspiring to have been thinking on a very particular subject and have Rinpoche give a teaching on it within days. This type of foreshadowing happened quite often with Rinpoche, and does with Buddha Maitreya and his teachings. Anyway, I was so moved by this experience and Rinpoche's aspiration that one morning, while doing prostration, I vowed to do 1,000,000 between then and Maitreya's arrival, just for the opportunity to sit at his feet and receive his teachings. I did 10 symbolic prostrations, visualizing that each one was 100,000. And I was thinking that I was at least going to have a couple lifetimes to work on this promise. Well, it didn't take long before I was encountering Buddha Maitreya. I had been in a really deep meditative state that was carrying over into my post-meditation during this time, and it must have been somewhere in between 2 to 3 weeks that this was going on. While experiencing this mix of deep concentration, emptiness, and slight euphoria, I was again pulled back to looking up Maitreya and contemplating the coming of the Messiah. Something I considered to be 2 different things, but 2 things that were filling and inspiring me all at once. This time I actually stumbled across his website, buddhamaitreya.org. Looking at it at a glance, I was filled with skepticism and caution, as this really didn't look like the Buddhism I would have expected. Expectations, though, are a big problem for quite a few of us, and in many areas of our lives. I was about to leave, but a link to a radio interview caught my attention, and I had to listen for myself to hear what someone saying their Buddha would actually be trying to get across if they were interviewed. It piqued my interest to hear the words of truth, or those of a fraud if nothing else came of it. The radio interview blew me away. Seriously, the down-to-earth demeanor, the questions asked, and his response to them was so common sense and so different from any of the frauds that I had seen on YouTube. There's always something inherently off about their tone, their vibe, their look, or their message that makes it obvious, to me anyway, that they're delusional. I listened to the radio interview, and about halfway through said, "Oh my God, I'm listening to the voice of the Buddha." Rinpoche had also given a very recent teaching about how if you were there back in the time of the historical Buddha and heard his voice, that it was a blessing that would carry through all your future lives. I listened to the interview at least another 2 times between that day and the next, and it just rang more true every time. There were no cracks in the voice, pauses to indicate thinking of the best way to formulate what to say, just pure spontaneous interaction. It was very common sense and very reassuring. No hints of a lie or untruth. I then looked up his recognitions and saw that he was recognized by a recognized student of Padmasambhava as having been his teacher, Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava. This opened the door for me to start considering whether or not all these great teachers could have actually been the same person. If this really is Guru Rinpoche, who would I be, not being very realized myself, to say otherwise? I'm most assuredly not recognized as being one of his students for many of those lives, but those who did recognize him are established as such. If we all reincarnate, even Jesus was supposed to have a second coming, then why would there be an exception for only one person? The Buddha, the teacher of the Bodhisattva vow to keep reincarnating till each and every sentient being is liberated. And why are there prayers beseeching the Buddhas not to pass into nirvana, but to keep turning the wheel of Dharma till final enlightenment for all? I started attending Om meditations at the center here in Salt Lake City shortly thereafter, and had only been to a handful of them when one of Buddha Maitreya's students gave me a solar form a lot like this radiator. I had been looking at solar forms just a week earlier, and had settled in on a silver Shambhala star with aqua crystals, almost exactly like the one gifted to me. I was in between jobs at the time, wasn't going to have any money for a solar form anytime soon, and was really quite blown away that somebody could just give someone they'd never met in person before a gift like that. It couldn't have come at a more appropriate time. As I'd been meditating over the past year and a half, not only was I becoming more aware of the prana moving through the subtle body, but I was also far more aware of and inundated with outside and inside negative energies. I have protection amulets that I was given by Rinpoche and did Dharma protector practices, but nothing did what this solar form did. Within a day, I felt the negative energy that I had been feeling mute to about 10% of what it previously had been. I felt the warm glow and bliss of blessings coursing through my chest for the first week, and would recommend a solar form to anyone who is susceptible to negative energies. Each new tool opens up a new experience. This Shambhala Christ cross had the same feelings of bliss, serenity, and glow to it when I got it, but it really moved through this upper part of the body, out the shoulders, and through the lower neck. I recently added this radiator, And the first day that I had it was the most profound experience of emptiness I've ever had. I wait tables for a living and have never been able to work a shift without some kind of thought or emotional process going on at some point. But wham! There was nothing that day. I look forward to working back to that. If it's even possible to have a favorite tool, I would have to say that I'm incredibly fond of the Deva Builder. This is used in standing meditation, starting at the crown chakra and rolling down over each chakra until one arrives at the base chakra and rolls it back up. The whole purpose of this meditation is to properly align the 7 rays of God, the rays emanating from the Buddha's chakras to your 7 chakras. And it does it. To borrow a description from another student, it's like taking a psychic bath, clearing away all the junk accumulated during sleep when you wake up in the morning, or at the end of a workday. The level of prana that flows throughout the body is just amazing. And the calmness and serenity experienced after a stressful night of work and using the Deva Builder is just priceless. Seriously, in 10 minutes, I feel like I've winded down and grounded out in what would take an hour or more if I hadn't used the Deva Builder. I also experienced the streaming of tears in a non-emotional way when using this, and sure, this is some kind of release. Lastly, I felt mid-back and lower back vertebrae pop quite a bit and feel my posture straighten when doing this alignment. Really good stuff. I've had the wonderful opportunity to see hundreds of people experience the electric tingle of prana moving through their hand or their body when using the tools. Some people don't feel anything, but that's okay. For everyone who is receptive enough to experience it, the level of their reaction stuns everyone who is looking. I've seen complete emotional releases while this is happening, people crying and letting go like they've just been in therapy. I've had days where doubt and suspicion crept in during the first year as a student of Buddha's, but simply recalling my experiences and the experiences of others has dispelled those kinds of doubts and kept the veil from coming back over and obscuring just who Buddha Maitreya the Christ is and how I know. The highlight of these experiences is having been able to help a friend whose husband had a blood clot condition that was keeping him from going to work. They had done everything they were advised to do through doctors, and she had asked several friends of hers that were spiritual healers to do healings when the doctors didn't help, all to no avail. I was going to go over to their house and use the Weaver in person, but it never did line up. I saw her again, got his name, and did 4 remote distance healings about an hour at a time with this Weaver over the course of a week. It took another week before I saw her again, but she said that his condition had cleared and his chances of getting back to work were looking really good. A week after that, I saw her again, and she introduced her husband to me. He was going back to work. They both had tears in their eyes and were so genuinely moved and thankful for the healing that they knew came from the etheric Weaver and Buddha Maitreya. Through 3 years of attending almost every Om meditation, several darshans, and playing his music in my bedroom 24 hours a day, using his tools has given the experience of feeling prana, which has been blown wide open. What used to be a small noticeable tingle can now be a full-blown body experience, and has even opened up sensitivity to the energy of stones, crystals, places, and certain people. The humming in the head or the experience of bliss in certain chakras while sitting under the pyramid at the Salt Lake City Center is the ultimate proof to me of the holiness of his teachings, tools, and being. I attended my first darshan at the Shambhala Monastery in California 2 years ago, And the experience of being there around and under those pyramids, not to mention the energy and radiance of the students that were there, is beyond my ability to articulate. I sat in his presence, not 25 or 30 feet away from him, and had 4 or 5 bindus in different places move through the chest center. The meditational experience was amazing. I have never had much of a relationship with Christ until discovering Buddha Maitreya, but left there knowing I had met my Lord and Savior. He's here, folks. You don't have to do anything, and you are being redeemed. If you are a person practicing meditation, prayer, virtuous living, or are even contemplating buying a Shambhala Healing Tool, you are only quickening your own personal process as we all ascend as a humanity. I do all the things I can to the best of my ability, and using the tools has had a tremendous impact on my letting go of the glamours, kleshas, mind poisons, and facilitating the mind to be tamed. The outcome is that I am most definitely a better person to be around, and I'm happy, fulfilled, and thankful. Many testify to being more grounded in daily life. I can testify to periods of time where there is no battle of higher or lower mind taking place, to open spaciousness of mind in meditation and at points throughout the day, to being able to transmute my negative emotions, to being aware enough to use will to counteract the lower mind and put others' needs before mine, to the Holy Spirit moving through the words that come out of this mouth when the self manages to let go, and to people really noticing the positivity, authenticity, and light coming from me at times, and making it a point to tell me so. I've been able to let go of 3 out of 4 of the major vices in my life since finding my Buddha Maitreya, and am now 10 days into the process of quitting smoking for the umpteenth and final time. Every negative habituation I have let go of by giving it over to Christ and trying to do my part has opened up more reward to me than I could have ever imagined. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder about 12 years ago, and have been off of medication for the past 2 years and had no manic energy during that time. Please be aware that I have spent a lot of time to find out what the triggers were, how to eat well, rest, and exercise to avoid them popping back up, and had been using the tools extensively for a year before deciding to let go of the medication. For the past year and a half, I have been biking in and back from work. It takes 2 hours out of my day, but I'm on a bike and riding 80 to 100 miles a week. My diet has room for improvement, but it is so much better than it has ever been. I have been waiting tables for the past 2.5 years, and for the old man that I used to be, this would have been seen as not living up to my full potential. It has, however, been one of the biggest blessings, enabling me to have the first part of my day to be used for practice, reading, stretching, and walks, and still having a decent living from serving others, literally. I'd have to say that my life is healthier and fuller in every aspect. The experiential process of listening to the music and using the tools is really all the validation anyone needs to overcome the veil of doubt that tries to set back in after finding Buddha. The amount of healing and personal transformation I've experienced completely validate Buddha Maitreya as the reincarnation of every teacher he has been, and has now, at this point of time of getting to know him, given me the faith to recognize him not just as the world teacher, but as the reincarnation of Christ on earth. If you have a personal testimony to share about Buddha Maitreya the Christ, his teachings, or his tools, I implore you, take the time to make a video and share it with Signs of Christ. The world deserves to know and know him through you. My most sincere gratitude.